Hello everyone, welcome back. In last class, basically, we have learnt basic about the uh, wisdom, and we have seen how the SOAP UI basically, how the basically response look and how the request look, and everything basically we have learned in detail. And what are the component of wisdom basically, everything basically we have learned in detail. If you have any doubt, you can comment me. Okay. Now in this lecture, basically, I am going to basically deal with about the creation of the visual. Basically, I am going to create a visual. For that, I have made a small diagram. Hope it will be looking good to you. Basically, how basically I am going to create my web service or what my web service is going to do. This basically is a small diagram. Let's take a there is a client basically. There is a client and there is a server. Okay. Basically, client basically requests the information from the server and server basically respond back the information. Let's take a scenario like that. There is a store, and where some people are coming and placing their order. Okay, if someone is placing an order, there is a, of course, there is a transaction number, there is a transaction date in which date basically transaction has been placed, and there is a store number, and there is a how many quantity they have purchased and what is the total amount of the quantity after the purchase, and the delivery address where the goods need to be delivered. Once let's take example, someone from a store has been placed an order and the client basically request this information to the server. Okay, server basically what the server is basically doing, server basically for the successful for the successful transaction, basically server what does, basically server basically insert all these details into the one of the database is a transaction detail. Okay, this is server basically once the insertion of this is successful, then basically server respond back the with the response that the transaction number and transaction status is the transaction is successful. In case if it is not successful, it will give a error. Okay, so this is basically I'm going to make a small basically a visual, and after that I am going to create a web service. What web service basically does? Web service basically we are going to request this information from the server, and server is going to the insert the detail into a database. Once the insertion is successful, basically they are going to respond back to the client with the transaction number and the transaction status. This is my going to be the whole diagram for the what I am going to create in the coming session. So this is basically one of the small example I have taken. This can be a bigger. I get lots of segment can be. I have just taken the transaction number, date, store number, quantity, and there are lots of figure who has the from where this has been bought, that delivery address, and there is some more like that can be your like that some unique or more numbers, and can be like some token ID, some offered amount. Lots of tag can be possible. Just I have taken a simple example so that it will be easy for you. Okay, so here the client is basically someone once the someone has placed an order, basically client just to make the order as successful, client basically requesting some information from the server which is present at our end. Okay, and we are responding back once the my transaction is successful, my transaction is getting inserted from database. From this database, basically whatever the order amount, whatever the everything I will are going to be further process. We don't need to take about it how what is going from the this database. Just consider that once the transaction is getting inserted into this database, my transaction is successful. Let's take a scenario like that. Okay, now how basically my client is going to request this information from the server. There is a question might came in your mind. Okay, okay, how basically, so basically for that I am going to create a web service, and I am going to give the web service URL to the client. I am going to create web service, I am going to give a web service URL to the client, and I will told when you require to request when you require to request information, basically just hit the URL, and you will fetch information, we will request information from the server, and we will also get a response back. Okay. So in later section, I am going to create the web service. I am going to show you how the URL looks basically. Already in last lesson, basically, I have shown you the how the URL looks. I am going to create the real URL. Okay. So in this lecture, basically, let's create the widget. So let's create the so this diagram basically we are going to follow. Okay. Now let's create the widget. So for visual creation, basically, uh, for visual creation, just we are going to create a visual over the toolkit. Let's just right click on new and then we have to go to other. Once you go to other, just write the message set here. Set. You will get the message set from here. Okay. Just click on next. Here, give the message set name basically what you are going to create. I'm just going to create a message set for transaction. Then I will write the transaction uh, details. I'm going to create a message set whose name is transaction detail. Okay. Just click on next. Here basically we are going to create the web service, and this is basically a SOAP based service. So I have to select here from the web service SOAP. Basically I'm going to create a web service. That's the reason I have to select the web service for SOAP. Basically just right click, just select from the here web service SOAP. Just click on next and just click on finish. It will take some second. Now you can say my message set has been created. Now it's time to create the message. Uh, it's time to create the message definition. Once the message set has been created, just right click on the message set, new, and message definition file. Or you can select from the here other, new, other. You can search also message definition file. If you want to directly import, if you have the visual, then you can directly import from here. If you don't have, then you can create a new from here. Okay. Just click here. Basically, we have to give the message definition file name. So let me write like a transaction. Give the same name details. Okay. Now this is basically the file format is the XSD for the basically the for the message definition. Okay. Now just click on finish. Now my message definition has been created. If you see, my message definition has been created. Under it there is a message. Is this segment are there? Now I have just created the message definition message set. Under the message set, I am just created a message definition. Okay. Now we have to add this. Basically, we have to add this as we need to basically add these tags basically. The what I'm going to do the transaction number, these all things I need to add here. Okay. Okay. Now there are basically types and the element. Okay. In types basically we need to add the basically I already told you. Let me open this uh, web service. I have already shown you in last lecture. For a particular web service, you know there is a some complex tag. Under complex tag there is a some uh, there elements, you can say that. Okay. So here we need to also create the some complex tab here, and also some elements we need to add here. So we need to here create the complex tab, and also here element we need to create it. Okay. Okay. So let's create the complex type. Add complex type and write the name. I am basically I am just adding the transaction. So add transaction request. Basically I'm just written like that, add transaction request. Why I have written like that? If you can write any name whatever you want, okay, but I'm just writing for my convenience. Basically what I am doing, I'm just adding this transaction to our database, okay. So for my convenience, so that I can what my web service is doing, basically I have written like that. You can write any name whatever you like, it is up to you, okay. Or you can write it like that, simple transaction based also, it is up to you, okay. Let me write the transaction request itself, okay. Transaction request, and there is another, if you know, there are two types of complex tag. There is a one is the adds student detail request, another there are element, and another is once you get a response, there is a another, basically if you see here another, there is a add student response detail response. Similarly we have to you need to create here also. So let me just get it, add a complex type, transaction response, okay. And there is one complex type you may be aware, there is a fault. What does basically mean fault? You may be aware, in case some thing wrong happen with the web service, and in that case some errors happen, that error basically we get into the fault, okay. So that for that we need to also define a fault. It is optional, you if you don't want to define it, you cannot define it, it is not defined, it is optional, it is up to you basically. But if you want to make a effective web service, then you need to basically define a web fault, okay. Now, so I have just created three complex type. First is the transaction request, second is the transaction response, and the third is the fault. Now it's time to create the childs. That is the time to create the childs. These are childs. That is name, roll number, class, and marks. For here the child is, if you would see here, the child is the transaction number, transaction date, store, quantity, total amount, delivery address, transaction number, and transaction status. These all are the child basically. This is the child for the request. This is child for the. These all are the child for the in case of transaction request, and these are the child transaction number, and transaction status is the child for the, or you can element for the transaction response. Okay. For the further fault, there is a fault code, and the fault string will be the element, or you can say child for the fault. Okay. So let's create the element. If you want to create an element, just right click on element and add the global element. Okay. From here you can add the global elements. Okay. So these all things basically request and response on, basically easy for my copy and paste. I have just written my notepad so that I just copy and paste here. Okay. In that here. Okay. So let me just add more. I will write at one time. Okay. What are the tag basically I need? Just right here. Okay. Let me just continue quickly. Just copy and paste me the elements name in the basically my web service. Okay. Just copy and paste transaction number, transaction date, and sorry, where is my notepad? Let me bring it back. Store number, then is the quantity, and then is the total amount, and then is the delivery address, and then is the transaction status. This is the common transaction status. Apart from them, basically I need to add the fault code and fault distance. Let me add two more. Okay. Now let me add the fault code. F code and F string. Now this is okay. Now it's done. So I have just written here the this is all my complex type, the transaction request, that is the request, and transaction response, that is the response one. This is basically in case of request, and this is in case of response, and there is a fault in case of some failure happen. And these are basically the elements, basically transaction number, date, store number, quantity, total amount, delivery address, transaction number, and f code and f string. These are the basically in the elements and attributes. Okay. Now let's take a scenario. Uh, Now there is a let's take example. If in case you want to some in case of request, name, roll number, class, marks was there, right? Similarly, in case of basically request, basically what you want to store, that need to basically keep here. You need to. This is basically transaction request. Under request, basically transaction number, transaction date, store number, quantity, and total amount, and to delivery address is there. So that thing basically you need to add here. Okay. So how can you add here? Just right click on here, and you have to just add element reference. Basically, you need to add from here. You can add the element that from here you can add all the element that you want to be in request. Similarly, from here you can add the all the element that you want to in the response. And similarly, from here you can add the all the element that you want to in the fault. Okay, that's how I want basically this information in case of request, and I want in response this information. And in case of basically fault, I'm wanting the fault code and fault string. Okay. Similarly, if you see here in the request, basically I was expecting this in this case. In response, basically I was expecting only message tag. This thing basically for this thing basically this is happening. I'm request I'm expecting this, and response I'm expecting this. So this thing basically I need to add here. Okay. So let me add it quickly. Element reference, first tag I want expecting transaction number. So let me add the transaction number. Okay, now you can see it is added here. Now again, after that I am expecting transaction date, just add here. After that I am expecting a store number, quantity, and total amount. The store number, quantity, and total amount and delivery address. Total amount, delivery address. So total amount and delivery address. Where is delivery address? So I have just added all the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements under the request. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Transaction number, transaction date, store, quantity, total amount, and delivery address I have added into request. Similarly, I need to add into the response. In response, I am expecting transaction number and the transaction status, because so that so that client can understand basically for which transaction my status is what. This will be helpful for a client to get the for which transaction what is my status. Okay, that's the I have selected two, the transaction number and what is the status. Okay, in response. Okay, now this is all done. Now in case of fault, I am expecting fault code and fault string. Then let's check the fault code and fault string. This is all done. Now under in case of request, these all are the element as you are seeing in here. Okay, in case of response, these are the basically elements as you are seeing in here. Okay, and in case of fault, this is the basically. Okay, one last thing basically we need to do. There is one thing basically important point in case of you creating the visual. This thing basically should also mandatory in case this all thing is 1 2 3, all things should be mandatory to present here also. This is where one important point that many people will get missed. These three things basically this should be also present in the element. Okay, how can we add it? Just right click on here, add message from the global. If you just, you can see here it is added. Just add message from the global and add message from the global. Now this is all done. I just added the all elements in the request and response and fold. Further, I have added all three the global complex type into the element. Now it's time to create the widget. Now everything I have added. So how can we create the widget? If you want to create the widget, just right click here. Just right click on the amxxd file. Just there is an option of generate. Here you are getting the WSDL definition. Just click here. From here, generate a new visual definition from the existing message definition. Of course, I want to generate a new visual definition. So if you want to generate a new visual, just click on this and just click on next. Here, basically, what you have created just now, you are seeing here. Just click, just select this and click on next. Here, basically, you will see what are the basically namespace is present in your. You can see if you are seeing here, there is a namespace present here. You just let me show you. If you see, there is a namespace present here for the SOAP envelope. There is a, this is the basically the namespace. And in case of the for this basically STUD, there is a namespace this present here. Okay. Similarly, you are seeing same namespace here also. If you want to change, you can change here. It is up to you. But I am selecting this. Okay. Now definition name, just leave it. It is looking good. Okay. Here there is three options: generate a single visual file, generate a single visual file from the all XML alignment, and generate a three visual file. Just select this one. Basically, this is the best option. Okay, and just click on next. Here, basically, you need to add the basically operations name. What is your operation name? Basically, if you no, there is a, if you see what is your operation name, if you in last lecture basically I have taught you, there is one operation name called as a request. If you are requesting some information, a client is requesting some information, then it is called a one operation name, the request. And if you are getting response back, this is come under the one operation itself. Okay. If someone is requesting a responding back, then it's called a this is called basically one operation. So under one operation, basically you are getting a request and response. Okay. Just I need to add here the name. Okay. So just I am going to add any name what basically looks good to you. So you can write like I'm just writing like that transaction transaction. What name I looking good to me? Transaction detail. Transaction looking good to me. Let's leave it transaction. Okay. After that, I have to select from the what basically I'm expecting input. I'm input in input. You know, in input basically I'm expecting request. If for the server in input I am requesting request from the client, and output I am giving back a response. Okay, because I am creating the visual, and this visual I'm just creating the visual. I am going to this visual into the this server. I am going to this visual into this server while creating the application. Okay, so I input I am expecting request. In output I will give a response, of course. In case of fault happen, I am going to use the fault. This is basically my simple operation one operation. If you want to, if you have more operation like that, if you want to create more operation, just if you click on add more operation, and again you need to give the details and you just fill it. Okay, just click on next. Here basically you need to give the web service URL that looks good to you. Okay, so here the service name basically you need to give the service name basically looking good. This I for me looking good like that. Let me select that. Now this is swap transaction details, swap service. Then it is looking good to me. You can select any name. DJ. Port name basically you have to write transaction detail. So port that is looking good to me. So I will like that. Okay. Again here I need to give the basically the web service URL that you like. Okay. Here you can give any name, anything. Basically later you can change as per your the application you creating. It totally depend on how what basically you are putting in your application. Okay. It's totally up to you. But here you can uh, write anything as per your computer. But I am writing what looks good to me. Okay. So for that I am just writing like that transaction. Okay. Now it is okay. Just see the HTTP under that localhost, under the port number of the EG and the transaction dates. I'm just writing here. This is my, I'm just keeping like that my web service URL. Okay. Just click on next. Now this all done. I need to create the visual. Just click on finish. If you click on finish, now your visual has been created. If you see, this is my the visual. If I click on right click and just give go to properties, you will see this is basically the location of the visual. Okay, this is the location of the visual. Under the C, under the learn official, under this is my visual file just created. Okay, so let me show you how it's looking my visual file. Okay, so let me copy the path. The user this. Yeah, let me copy it in the part. Okay, and let me give here. If you see, this is my the visual. Let me copy this. I think I am not able to edit from the here notepad. Okay, I am able to. Okay, so I have opened this visual. I open this visual in the notepad, but it is not prefer to open this from here itself because if you some do edit, then further it will be giving error while creating application. It is better to let's copy it and paste it into the different location so that in case of some mistake by mistake it is getting edited, then it will not affect my while creating the application. So now just I have opened it. Okay, now you can see here in the visual file just quickly these all are basically the request, and if you see here the complex type is given. Complex type is the request, and that is the request response. Also there is a fault and the kind of complex type under that fault code and fault string. Under that in the request response, that is the transaction date, transaction status. Under request it is the transaction number, transaction date, store number, quantity, total amount, delivery address is there. Okay, similarly these all things already I have explained you in detail. This if you see, this is my web service URL that I have created. This is my web service URL. Okay, and everything basically if you see here the operation name will be their operation name basically in input what basically you are getting, and your output basically how what you are going to get. Everything basically here mentioned in the visual file. If you want, if just client want what basically the if someone client expect wanting that the what basically my web service is doing, then you can just give them the visual file, and this visual file basically once you give the client basically they will understand what the web service basically actual do. Okay, so if someone from the client a client is expecting to give me the what actually web service is doing, and I want to see basically web service detail, you just give him the visual file, and it is a simple plain XML language. Anyone can understand this in easily. So you can give them the XML file and they will understand easily what basically it is doing. Okay, so this is basically I have created the in this lecture I have created the, if you see the transaction visual, this is my visual created. And next lecture basically I am going to this visual while creating the soap service. I am going to create the soap service. I am going to creating the one of the application basically a soap service based. After that I am going to this visual and I am going to create the some request and response. Okay, hope this lecture will be whole helpful for you. If you have any doubt you can comment me. You can just send me a mail to the learn and pass official at gmail.com, and we will meet again with the next topic, the interesting topic. If you have any doubt, You can reach out to me to different platform like that. You can send me the comment on the Telegram, Instagram, Facebook, and anything. Thank you all for watching the video. We will meet again. Thank you so much. Thank you all.